Inflation. It's a word we hear often in economic news. But what does it actually mean for us? Simply put, inflation is the rate at which prices for goods and services increase over time. Imagine your favorite samosas costing 10 rupees today. With inflation, they might cost 12 rupees next year. This means the purchasing power of your money decreases. You can buy less with the same amount. Inflation is a significant economic indicator. It reflects the overall health and stability of an economy. When prices rise rapidly, it can erode people's savings and create uncertainty for businesses. Understanding inflation is crucial for individuals, businesses, and policymakers alike. However, not all price increases signal inflation. A sudden surge in the price of onions due to bad weather is not inflation. That's a temporary fluctuation. Inflation refers to a sustained, broad-based increase in the general price level across various goods and services in an economy. In conclusion, inflation is a complex economic phenomenon with far-reaching consequences. It affects our daily lives, influences business decisions, and poses significant challenges for policymakers. By understanding the causes and consequences of inflation, we can navigate the economic landscape more effectively. One of the primary drivers of inflation is demand-pull inflation. This occurs when there's an excess of demand in the economy relative to the supply of goods and services. Think of it like a popular toy during the festive season. When everyone wants the toy, but there aren't enough to go around, the price shoots up. Several factors can contribute to demand-pull inflation. A booming economy with low unemployment and rising wages often leads to increased consumer spending. This surge in demand can outstrip the economy's ability to produce goods and services, pushing prices upwards. Government spending, particularly deficit spending, can also fuel demand-pull inflation. When the government injects more money into the economy, it can stimulate demand without a corresponding increase in supply, leading to price rises. In essence, demand-pull inflation occurs when there's too much money chasing too few goods. This imbalance between demand and supply puts upward pressure on prices, leading to inflation. Understanding this dynamic is crucial for managing inflation and maintaining economic stability. While demand-pull inflation stems from the demand side, cost-push inflation originates from the supply side of the economy. This type of inflation occurs when there's an increase in the cost of production for businesses. Imagine the price of petrol suddenly doubling. This affects transportation costs, which in turn increases the price of everything transported by trucks. Several factors can contribute to cost-push inflation. A sudden increase in the price of raw materials like crude oil or steel can ripple through the economy, raising production costs for businesses. Similarly, wage hikes, while beneficial for workers, can also contribute to cost-push inflation if businesses pass on the increased labor costs to consumers through higher prices. Government policies such as increased taxes or regulations can also play a role in cost-push inflation. These policies can increase the cost of doing business, leading to higher prices for consumers. In conclusion, cost-push inflation is a supply-side phenomenon that occurs when businesses face rising production costs. These increased costs are often passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices, leading to inflation. Managing cost-push inflation requires addressing the underlying factors driving up production costs. Section 4. Supply shocks, disruptions that fuel inflation. Sometimes unexpected events can disrupt the normal functioning of supply chains, leading to a phenomenon known as supply shocks. These shocks can cause sudden and significant price increases, contributing to inflation. A classic example is the oil crisis of the 1970s, when disruptions in global oil supply sent oil prices soaring, triggering a wave of inflation worldwide. Natural disasters such as earthquakes, floods, or droughts can also cause supply shocks. These events can disrupt agricultural production, damage infrastructure, and create shortages of essential goods, leading to price spikes. Similarly, geopolitical events like wars or trade embargoes can disrupt global supply chains, leading to price volatility and inflation. The COVID-19 pandemic provided a stark example of how supply shocks can fuel inflation. Lockdowns, factory closures, and disruptions in global shipping led to shortages of goods and raw materials, driving up prices and contributing to global inflation. In essence, supply shocks are unexpected events that disrupt supply chains, leading to price spikes and contributing to inflation. These shocks highlight the vulnerability of globalized economies to disruptions and the importance of building resilient supply chains to mitigate inflationary pressures. Section 5. The money printer's role, monetary policy, and inflation. Central banks, like the Reserve Bank of India, play a crucial role in managing inflation through their monetary policy tools. One of the primary ways central banks influence inflation is by controlling the money supply in the economy. When central banks increase the money supply too quickly, it can lead to inflation. Think of it like having more money in circulation chasing the same amount of goods and services. It can drive up prices. Central banks typically increase the money supply by lowering interest rates. Lower interest rates make it cheaper for businesses and consumers to borrow money, which can stimulate economic activity and demand. However, if demand outstrips supply, it can lead to inflation. Conversely, central banks can try to curb inflation by raising interest rates. Higher interest rates make borrowing more expensive, which can slow down economic activity and reduce demand, helping to cool down inflation. However, raising interest rates too aggressively can also stifle economic growth. In conclusion, central banks walk a tightrope in managing inflation. They need to balance stimulating economic growth with keeping inflation in check. Their monetary policy decisions, particularly regarding interest rates and the money supply, have a significant impact on inflation and the overall health of the economy.